Hello and welcome to our latest Money Show Money Masters podcast segment. I'm Mike Larson, editor-in-chief at Money Show, and today I'm speaking with Carley Garner, senior commodity market strategist and broker at DeCarley Trading. Welcome to the podcast, Carley.
Hi, Mike. Thank you. It's good to be here, as always.
Great, glad you could make it. I was looking at it, was all the way back in April we last spoke for this podcast, and I mean, a lot has changed in the markets, especially in commodities. So I guess we start with the big picture, right? I mean, I'm looking at the Bloomberg Commodity Index; it's down about 11% in the last 12 months. Obviously, energy is a big part of that, given the weighting there. But I'm kind of curious as to, big picture, what are you seeing in commodities? Do you think we're going to be expecting better times in 2024, or how do you see things unfolding?
Well, it's interesting. The commodity markets have had a really wild run, basically since early 2020, when we first learned about COVID shutdowns. It's been just a roller coaster ride in commodities. We've had wars break out. In all honesty, we've had 3 or 4 black swan events occur in a 3-year period. So we're going to either have to redefine black swan or, just adjust our mindset. But the reality is, I think that those types of wild swings are behind us. I think things actually calm down from here. Historically, commodities generally go down more than they go up, and they generally experience low volatility. This high volatility we've seen in the last couple of years is just kind of an outlier statistically. So I think that we're getting to a situation where, we're going to start treating commodities differently as opposed to all commodities being one asset going up or down together. They're going to start trading based on individual fundamentals going forward, in my opinion. And I think it's going to create some opportunities. For example, I think that we're starting to get into seasonally bullish times periods in the grains, and grains are coming up against some support. So if you are somebody that trades corn or soybeans or wheat, you might be looking for opportunities there. Crude oil is probably the most popular commodity that we talk about, and we've gone through a cycle of just overwhelmingly bullish narratives, but it's yet to produce a sustainable rally. However, I think we've wiped out all the froth in that market. The speculative position is sitting at a minimal. What I mean by that is we follow the COT report, the Commitment of Traders report that's issued by the CFTC, and it tells us who's long, who's short, how much. And large speculators are holding one of the smallest positions they've ever held in crude oil, or at least in the last decade or so. And on previous occasions, when they're this light, it usually produces a nice rally. So we're combining that along with seasonal bullish tendency during this time of year, and some chart analysis that suggests that somewhere around 66 to 68 should be about the bottom in oil. So we're hoping to see some prices stabilize here in the next week or so near those prices.
I'm glad you brought up oil. That's where I was going to go first. Obviously, again, everybody talks about it. And then even as we're recording, there was just some, bearish news out of Saudi Arabia in terms of oil pricing for their exports there. Is it sentiment that's going to help turn this thing? Do you think some of the supply issues that have been weighing on the market, U.S. production and so on, is going to fade to the backdrop? What do you think is going to help the oil market, I guess, longer term?
Right. Well, you're right. The U.S. is producing more oil with fewer resources now than they have really ever. But Saudi Arabia, well, let's just say OPEC plus, and their production cuts are helping to keep a floor under the market. And I think some of those narratives that we've been talking about, Middle East turmoil, the Russian war, all these types of things that have been circulating for a while and weren't able to keep prices above 100 or anywhere near 130. I think those narratives will be enough to keep a floor under pricing in the high 60s. So I think the market's just going to treat things a little bit different. Also, I think sentiment is actually very low. Despite prices being as low as they are, sentiment, well, I shouldn't say despite, because prices are as depressed as they are relative to where we were a year or two ago, speculators in commentary has all kind of turned bearish, which is when I start to get interested in seeing things go the other way, because when everybody adopts the same story and the same narrative is usually when the market has a surprise for us.
Got it. Okay. Let's shift tacks a little bit here and talk about another thing that's another part of the commodity market that's been in a lot of focus, precious metals, gold in particular. I mean, we keep seeming like we're getting close to that breakout in gold and never seem to actually have it. A little bit of a rug pull in the short term. What do you see going on in that market, and what's your outlook there?
Gold and silver both have been extremely challenging for speculators. I mean, they just can't get out of their own way. Regardless of the environment, I mean, we had a high inflationary environment and gold couldn't break resistance. We've had the dollar selling off overall for the last several months, and gold still can't get above resistance. I'd say most people are probably at the verge of throwing in the towel. So I think we're in a situation where everybody's given up on the upside in gold. And I've been doing this long enough to know that's exactly when gold finally makes its move. I mean, if you look at a historical, like a long-term 20, 30-year chart, gold makes all of its moves all at once. It'll spend a decade going nowhere, and then one day it decides to move, and that was it. If you weren't in, you weren't in.
Got it. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the dollar. You brought that up. I mean, obviously, it has an impact on commodities pricing across the board. I mean, we have a Fed that's now openly maybe flirting with the idea of cutting rates before too long. Do you think that's going to continue to have a weakening impact on the dollar? Do you think we've seen about all the downside on the dollar to date? I'm wondering what your charts and kind of your outlook are showing there.
Well, the charting that we've been following is suggesting that we should at least see about 99 to 100, which we're really close to that area. So we're almost near our initial downside targets. From there, we may get a little bit of a bounce, but if we're talking long run, like months, not weeks, I think that we're eventually going to make our way into the low 90s. Because although the dollar index at 100 seems kind of cheap because we started at 114, but the reality is 100 in the index is actually very high. And so I think there's definitely some room for the dollar to move lower. It just may not be immediately. We may have to digest some of this, but I do think we see the low 90s. If that is true, if that turns out to be the case, that should be supportive for most markets, particularly oil, particularly gold. Maybe that'll be the one thing that finally gets it moving above resistance and into new all-time highs.
Yeah, okay. Since obviously a big driver of the dollar is what's going on in interest rate markets and Fed policy and so on, I saw that segment, or I know Jim Cramer was talking back, I guess, in mid-December about some of the things you were seeing in the Treasury market that maybe, pointed towards even lower yields. Is that still the situation now? What's kind of your take on what's going on in Treasuries?
I do think that we are in a scenario where interest rates are making their way lower. On some of our longer term charts, we have a 10-year yield pointing towards the possibility of 3 to 2 3/4. Now, this isn't something that's going to happen next month, but it could take quite a while to get there. But I think that's eventually where we're headed. That said, what happens in the next month or two could be a little bit dicey. The markets feel, to be honest, they feel a little bit dysfunctional, which is always the case coming off the holidays and thin volume and people getting caught on bad trades and things like that, or people making decisions based on tax consequences, not fundamentals. So there's a lot of weird things that go on at the end of the year and the beginning of the year, and we're still working through that. So I probably won't have a lot of conviction really with anything until we get into February, March, when things are a little more normalized as far as transactions go.
Okay, all right. That said, and you did kind of touch a little bit upon this earlier, I mean, the parts, sort of submarkets and commodities that look particularly bullish and attractive to you now, and on the flip side, I guess, anything that looks particularly bearish as far as a standout performance?
So the things that I've got my eye on are crude oil, which I've already mentioned. We're looking to play the upside on any real big dip. I do like the grains. We started recommending to our clients nibble on the long side of corn, using some relatively conservative option strategies where we have plenty of room for error because there is some near-term risk there. But as far as bearish positions, I'm guessing most people watching this video probably don't follow the softs, but cocoa is trading near an all-time high. It's had a pretty big break today, but historically, when cocoa gets this overextended, it generally shaves. We generally see a haircut of like 50, 60%. So I don't think we're done and going down in cocoa.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, one of the reasons we're talking, obviously, is I can't wait to see you. Our attendees can't wait to see you in Vegas when you're going to be at the Money Show Traders Expo there. We're still about a month and a half out from that, so I know things can change. But any ideas about what you think you might talk about, sneak peek you might share in the conference there in Vegas?
Sure. Well, what we'll be talking about, and it's a kind of a topic that I cover in most of the trader show and money shows, is we're basically going to be talking about utilizing option strategies to take advantage of opportunities that we find. For example, if we're looking at high volatility or low volatility, we'll put together some sort of option strategy that makes sense for that scenario. We don't know exactly what we're going to be talking about because a lot can happen in the next month or two, but I suspect we'll be focusing on energies because those are generally big movers that time of year. Yeah. And we'll probably be doing some treasuries and stock indices as well. I have a feeling it's going to be an interesting year in all of those.
Well, since you mentioned it there before we part ways here, stocks. Any thoughts you'd want to I guess offer on that front, given what your outlook is here for that part of the market?
Sure. So I think that today, we've seen some, obviously a little bit of volatility over the last week or so as people are adjusting to the new year. And like I said, I think tax consequences are playing a part in what we're seeing.
Yeah.
But the market had every opportunity. And when I say the market, I'm talking about the S&P 500. We had every opportunity for the S&P to melt down, and it really didn't. It found some support. I'm thinking we're looking at about 4,900 to maybe 5,000 on the upside here in the next, let's say, 2 to 4 weeks. But we personally will probably be looking at those levels as a place to be a bear, or at least to hedge portfolios. You could do some sort of risk reversal where you sell calls and buy puts so that you can insure your portfolio just in case something goes south. Because as we all know, when the market decides to turn, it does it fast.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it seems like there's more and more swans out there for us to watch out for. I don't know exactly what color, but I'll keep my eyes out. Carley,
Exactly.
really, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insights, and thank you all for watching. Again, if you'd like to learn more from Carley, she is going to be among dozens of trading and investing experts that are going to be at the Money Show Las Vegas. That's from February 21st to 23rd, 2024 at the Paris Las Vegas Resort. Carley, thanks again. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Mike. You too.